we talk so much about how actors have to show up in order to get that performance, but how does the director have to show up? I can't expect them to be honest and open and transparent if I'm not open and honest and transparent.
Hey, it's your girl Nancy Red, and this is season 4 of Mompreneurs, where we celebrate beautiful Black entrepreneurs who are also amazing moms. Every week, I'm chatting with my guests about how they are crushing it simultaneously as a business mogul and as a mom, and we're listening to their inspiring journeys and incredible advice. Today's guest I'm so excited about because she is a visionary filmmaker who brings raw emotion, authenticity, and cinematic craft to every project that is lucky to have her. From trailblazing series like Queen Sugar through acclaimed work on Harlem, The Wonder Years, and of course Cross, Stacey Muhammad has carved a signature style rooted in storytelling for the human experience. Not only is she dedicated and deeply committed to fostering inclusion in the industry, she's training underserved youth in documentary filmmaking, and she's standing as a champion for talent of all backgrounds. She also has a gorgeous adult daughter, Skye, who has stolen her entire face. Stacey, I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for joining Mompreneurs.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, it's so fun. And watching your journey and learning about you has just been a joy and a gift. And I'm so happy for our audience to learn more about you as well. Before we get too far in the business side of things, though, can we get a little personal? Can you tell us who makes you a mompreneur?
My daughter, Skye. Yeah. She's 29 now. She's incredibly talented. She's a photographer, a music producer. She's here in New Orleans with me. Yeah, just, she's been with me for my entire journey. So like a lot of the projects I've done, she's been right next to me, helping me conceptualize this work. She's been an ear, she's been encouraging. And yeah, I'm just really proud of her. I just want her to, there's a question I saw a while ago that said that if you could say anything to your 20-year-old self, what would it be? And I think most of the women said, I'm worth it. There's nothing wrong with me. You know what I mean? So all these ways in which young women have a tendency to get in their own way. I know I did, and sometimes even still do, just encouraging her to just kind of love herself and let herself enjoy her life, and been as supportive as I possibly could be to help her do that. She's an artist, so I know the beauty and the privilege of being an artist. So I'm proud of her for being an artist and following her path as well.
I love that. And it says something about you because a lot of times when a kid grows up with a creative parent, they go the totally different way, right? They're just like, I am not an artist. I'm over here. I'm going to get me a little 9 to 5. But that says something about your relationship and how much she respects and admires you, that she's following in your artistic footsteps. And I love that. And I want to talk about that because I think a lot of people who listen and watch and chime in, they're worried about how can I do both? How can I parent and also go after my professional dreams and goals? And you are a great example of someone who is simultaneously reaching for the stars practically, but with the dream in mind. And I love that about you. For people who are listening and watching who might not know the full scope of what you do, how do you define what you do for work and business today? What are the elements of your modern mompreneurship?
It's funny because I always say that I am an independent filmmaker, and that's even with me being a television director now and directing popular shows. But, I come from the independent filmmaking world and mindset, right? And so I'm always thinking about how to get my work done. So I would say I'm an independent filmmaker, television director, and an activist because the work that I do is very much rooted in Black liberation. All of it was as an independent filmmaker, and most of the projects, it's always at the forefront of what I'm doing, so yeah, filmmaker, activist is how I would describe myself. Yeah.
I love that, and it's really incredible about you is not just that you are an independent filmmaker and that you identify as that, but also you're independently trained. You did not go to film school. You did not rack up hundreds of thousands of dollars of debts. Your training was within your community. It's all a big Venn diagram of activism, filmmaking, learning, growing all together. How did this affect your path differently? Because now you've got all the credentials, you've got all the connections now, but when you were first starting, how was your path different from people who went the traditional pipeline at the time?
For me, I've always been an artist. So I didn't come out of high school thinking I'm getting ready to go to college. I had a full ride, had a full scholarship at Temple University. a dance scholarship, but I wanted to go to Alvin Ailey. And so that's what I did. I left high school. I went to New York to dance at Ailey, and I spent time there. And from there, I just kind of like became an entrepreneur. I was a graphic designer for years. I lived in DC at the time after I left New York, and I wanted to get into film. But I was very much an activist, right? And so my entry into filmmaking was from an activist perspective. And so I was blessed, really blessed, to take classes with Haile Garima, who was the head of film at Howard University at the time, who did the film Sankofa. And so I say, I learned not just filmmaking lessons, but life lessons through him. A amazing casting director by the name of Twinkie Bird had, yes, she had a lot of workshops in DC at the time. So, for me, and I saw Hollywood as a tool of racism and white supremacy. I don't really think I see it a whole lot differently now, even though I think that there are a lot of ways in which people of color can maneuver in those spaces and do amazing work. But I know historically it's been used that way. So I didn't get into film thinking I'm trying to make it. I got into film from a perspective of how can I use my voice in these tools to tell stories about Black liberation. That work just happened to do really well. And I went to what they call Digital Film Academy, which is a school in New York City, similar to New York Film Academy, but I was 32 years old, very hands-on and very passionate about it because I was a little bit older, right? And so, yeah, I had that education from there, but it was about picking up a camera, being in New York at the time, working with Michael Boogie Pinkney and a lot of people who worked with Spike Lee at the time. And we were just out shooting our stuff and following our passion and learning along the way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And this goes back to what you were talking about with your daughter. She was right there with you. And there was sacrifice that goes hand in hand with success. And one thing about you that's really great is you never operated from a scarcity mindset. Even as a mother of a girl who had all of this stuff going on, you always pursued excellence, pursued your activism, feeling, trusting the process. With your documentary, I Am Sean Bell, which is just really powerful. And sadly, everyone should go watch it on YouTube. It's available for anyone to watch. It seems like it could have been shot very recently, but obviously it wasn't. How old was your daughter when you were working on this all those years ago, when you were in this community, when you were in Brooklyn, seeing all this happen and using your talent to shed light on it?
So she was in 5th grade when we moved to Brooklyn. When we shot I Am Sean Bell, she was in middle school because we actually shot it. The young boys in that film are her classmates, and little boys who went to, I believe it's called Arts and Letters Middle School in Brooklyn. So yeah, she was, middle school and right there, and right there with me. And so yeah, I think I was like driving around Brooklyn one day when the Sean Bell tragedy happened. A little Black boy was crossing the street, and I was just like, oh my God, like how are they feeling right now? Because it was it was a thing, like how are they feeling right now? And wanted to talk to young Black boys about their experiences moving around Brooklyn, walking to school. New York has always been very much a police state. It felt very much like that when I lived there, and I just wondered how they were feeling, and had a conversation with them about it. I was working at HBO at the time, which is one of the few jobs I've ever had. I was working at HBO in the shipping department media library and telling people, oh yeah, I want to be a filmmaker. And they were like, yeah, whatever, cool, sure. And
To be fair, so did everybody.
So did everybody, right? Exactly. But like I was like, no, I'm serious, right? And I ended up quitting HBO because every film festival I wanted to enter was HBO sponsored. I remember dating this guy at the time, and he worked there, and he was like, how the hell are you gonna quit? Like, we have these great Christmas parties. I was like, I don't care. And I quit. And the next year, Sean Bell won Best Short Film at the Media That Matters HBO Film Festival. I was right there in the same building that I worked in, packaging packages for HBO, now winning, a short film, but a short film that really kicked off the rest of my career.
Absolutely. And so well deserved, because it doesn't just highlight the young boys, it highlights mothers, fathers, children, all connecting themselves to this situation. And at the moment, though, quitting your job, while it worked out,
Yeah.
Was there any trepidation on your part? Were you nervous at all? You had this middle school girl, you had this job, you had I laugh because this is the conundrum a lot of mompreneurs find themselves
Yeah.
in, right? The security versus the long-term success. Like, you would not be in New Orleans right now with your artistic daughter, perhaps,
Sure.
had you stayed for the Christmas party.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that I would have been afraid of quitting my job, but I wasn't, right? I mean, I think again, and I keep bringing this up because it's real for me, right? Like, scarcity for me means that I don't get to live my life as an artist. Like, to me, that's scarcity, right? I just feel like everything else is going to work itself out. And so there are a lot of things I need to like figure out about myself, but that particular mindset is just something I never really subscribed to. I've always been very clear about what capitalism was. Like, all these tricks that people play around those ideas, I was aware of it. So yes, I need to make a living, and yes, I need to take care of myself and my daughter. I was just never afraid that I wouldn't be able to. And then, to be honest and transparent, I mean, as I got further in my career, I had support. I had a Marc Lamont Hill who was not just, a producer, but also a friend who could say to me, hey, here's this much money so that you can go work on this film. Like, he believed in me, not just as an artist, but as a friend, and so he invested in me and Kai, and I think having that type of support, having that type of community support, but just support as a brother and a producer, allowed me to focus on my art and not worry about my livelihood. So yeah, I owe Mark a lot of money.
I love that. Well, you know what? I think it's wonderful. And we talk a lot about, we can't just have mentors. We need sponsors. We
Absolutely.
need, we have to be able to survive through. And he's
Yeah.
been with you, you're still working together. I remember back in the day when we were both hosts on HuffPost Live, I remember your beautiful self coming
That's so
and talking about, because, he's not just your producing partner, you also wrote for Colored Boys together, and you're still doing things together. And he's not your only fan. It's not just a one person show in support of Stacey. Charles Dutton sings your praises. Ava DuVernay brought you on Queen Sugar, which you got to film in New Orleans. What was it like when you've been doing all this? You've been claiming this. You've been believing in yourself. And the partnerships started coming through, and the belief from your community, from your peers who were further along. What was it like to realize that you were on your upward trajectory as well?
It's humbling. I mean, it's funny because, again, and I say this all the time, I wasn't coveting. Things really did just kind of start to happen, right? Like, Ava, is someone that really pays attention, so she was paying attention to the work that I was doing in the indie world. And she called me, and we kind of knew each other, in passing. And she called me one day and was like, yo, come do Queen Sugar. You've been ready. I mean, because I was shadowing directors, on big shows like Bethany Rooney and Stephen Gyllenhaal. Like, I was out doing my thing, but I wasn't asking anyone for anything. And I think that a lot of times it's difficult to really get that across to creators. Desperation is not a vibration that you want to exist in, right? And so I think I just had that do for self mentality. So I was just doing my work. But yeah, at a certain point I was like, I'm doing my work and I'm doing my work and I'm doing my work. You know what I mean? And I really enjoyed doing this. I love being a television director. And so it just feels good, and it feels good because it wasn't something that I was, again, coveting. It's something that I just kind of worked really hard, wanted to do I wanted to do quality work, because I did docs, and then folks like, when are you going to do something scripted? And I said, well, I want to make sure that For Color Boys looks a certain way. And thankfully, with the support of Mark and other people, we were able to get For Color Boys off in the way that we were. But yeah, I don't take any of it for granted. I love, Ava, Whoopi, Malcolm D. Lee, Charles Dutton, all the people that have spoken my name in rooms when I wasn't there, and been incredibly supportive of my work and my journey. Yeah.
And it's so hard to not ask. That it's one of the most terrifying things, especially now where everything seems so flooded. Being thirsty seems to be part of the design now of trying to be seen across the noise. What is your advice to people who hope that, it's the classic, if you build it, they will come. Like, who hope that their work, their efforts will be noticed, and they're not sure how to make that happen for themselves? Is there any type of mantra or any type of thing that you think helped you just stay focused on just doing the work and believing that the success would unfold?
Well, I was just doing the work because I love doing the work, right? I mean, I think I'm at this point where I'm like, people do different things for different reasons. So it's difficult sometimes to like determine what to say because I don't really know what people's motivations are, right? I know my motivation was just to do good work. I do say that it's about doing the work. For example, when I did For Colored Boys, I I dedicated For Colored Boys in the memory of a man named Teddy Van, who was a mentor to many African American men in Brooklyn. He made the song Santa Claus is a Black Man.
His daughter is one of my mompreneurs.
Yeah, she's amazing. And so Teddy Van was a mentor of Malcolm D. Lee. I didn't know this, right? Teddy Van's brother, I'm sorry, one of Teddy Van's sons, I can't remember his name right now. It's escaping me. He reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Thank you for dedicating this to my dad. I love your work. I would love to introduce you to my friend, my classmate. They went to Georgetown together, Malcolm D. Lee." So I met Malcolm because I did For Colored Boys, right? I met Malcolm. I started visiting him on set, shadowing him on different things. I got this idea for a movie, The Return. He becomes my producing partner for that. And years later, we're at the point of making a project together. But if I hadn't been doing my work, if there hadn't been a For Colored Boys, if we hadn't crowdfunded, if we had been waiting for someone to kind of like catch on, right, then there wouldn't have been anything for someone to call me about and say, "Hey, thank you for doing it." Same thing with Whoopi Goldberg. She came to me or I came to her and we met as a result of For Colored Boys. Years later, I'm directing her on Harlem. So it really is just about doing the work, and I think doing the work for the right reasons, because people don't feel desperation, they feel authenticity from you. The only way I know to say it is just do the work, do it for the right reasons, and everything else that you want will absolutely come.
And also showing up. Daisy will show up. Because when I hear you say, there's a lot of back work that you did, like you shadowed, and it's so funny because it's sometimes the things you shadow on, you think, okay, well, I'm going to shadow and they're going to see me, and then that'll be my big break. But actually, if someone else watching you shadow for something else and saying, you know what, I'm going to bring you your big break over here. You can't expect for a linear trajectory, especially in our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny because for many years I thought I need to have a feature in order to do television. And then I'm shadowing and I learned that wasn't the case. And for years I was like, who's going to really give me an episode of television? I mean, it just worked out so beautifully that it would be Ava DuVernay, that it would be Queen Sugar, that it would be a New Orleans story, that I would be a director from New Orleans. I got a chance to do this story about this beautiful Black family. So it worked out the way it was supposed to work out. But I think I might have been 44 years old before I directed my first episode of television. That's a really sweet age. Like, this is a great age to be a director, because directing, really, like being a really good director, has a lot to do with life experience. When you can say to an actor, when you can talk to an actor from a place of experience, life experience. When I directed Raising Kanan, and directing Patina Miller in a particular scene about, she and Kanan and this mother-son conflict. Like, I could talk to her as a mother, and she's a mother as well. So it's like just coming to the table with a particular amount of life experience, it gives you so much more depth as a director. It really does. And so, yeah, I mean, I put in the work because I love doing the work.
And you also understood, again, life experience is simultaneously your life happening, but every hour you put on those sets when you're shadowing is something you learn. Like, there is no textbook, unfortunately, that tells you do not need a feature in order to get these things. You learn that on set. Mm-hmm. How do you learn it? Osmosis, gossip, someone just say, girl, you do not need that. This is what you need. Exactly. But you have to, so even if you're not being thirsty, you have to be in the rooms. You have to be in the zeitgeist. You have to be there. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be asking for nothing, but you do need to be doing something.
Absolutely. Yeah, without question. And I mean, like now there are folks that are coming to shadow me, on Cross. Every season I've had a shadow. Thanks, Ben. Every season I've had a shadow. I'm sure I will, next season as well. And, it really is about showing up with the right attitude. I mean, I told someone recently, I would love to still shadow. You know what I mean? There are directors I would love to sit next to. You cannot learn all there is to learn, right? And so I think just having that attitude of I'm still open to learning, I'm still open to listening, I'm still open to sitting at someone's foot, you know, and really taking it in and really soaking it in from a place of like, how can I continue to be of service? Because to me, being an artist is being of service, right? And yeah, just showing up with the right attitude without the desperation. Yeah.
And let's talk about the attitude, because there's a fine line between desperate, thirsty, and aloof. How do you hit the middle ground of being open? And because it's hard. Like, one of the things for us, especially those of us who grew up before social media and all this, there was an expected veneer. You've always been wonderful about not putting up that front, not faking it till you make it. But the people listening, this is not 2025 is a mind game. And so how have you been able to stay true to your commitment to authenticity? Is there something that you think people are doing to really mess up the fact that who they are is enough, how they see the world? Your artistic clarity is why you keep getting hired, why your projects keep getting made, why people love working with you. And a lot of people don't know how to bring that authenticity out in themselves for a variety of reasons.
Someone said something to me recently about like I said to someone, I can be myself with you. But then I said, I don't really know how to not be myself. Like, how are you not yourself, right? I think even when people are wearing masks, they're a person that wears a mask. Even when someone is being, when someone is not being authentic, then there's something about them that's disingenuous. Everyone's always being themselves, even when they're pretending not to be themselves. Like, how are you not yourself? So that's just a concept I'm still kind of like ruminating over. I think, I always say that this journey is a spiritual journey for me. I don't know what isn't, right? And so I think I would question or challenge someone around where they are in their spiritual life, and that would be the pathway to connecting to their authentic or the best version of themselves, which is what you want to strive to bring into any and every space you go into, personally, professionally, career-wise, artistically. Like, you want to bring the best version of yourself. And I think whether or not that's authentic is whether or not you're actually working on that best version of yourself, or if you think you can just kind of pop up and kind of like trick people into believing like, it's Tuesday and this is who I am. I think that people, particularly in the autistic world, not so much in the Hollywood system, but in the autistic world, they're pretty perceptive. And I don't think that we hide as well as we think we hide, And so, yeah, I think I can just say for me, it's just been about being real about the spiritual journey and believing that whoever I show up as is the person that's been doing the spiritual work along the way.
It absolutely makes sense. And also, it's a journey, right? Who we are showing up with. And that's one of the beautiful things. I love what you said. 44 is a great age to become a television director, because we have been through so many lives. People have died. People have been disappointing. People have been surprisingly, wonderful. At this age, yeah, we are more whole, and our journey is more clear, and we're more comfortable with ourselves. Yeah. Because when you are young, you don't have as much life experience. How can you know? Yeah. And so it's interesting, because along this way with this journey, as you have come into yourself, as you've continued to be your authentic self, your daughter's right there growing up with you. Yeah. How did the conversations evolve? Like to be able to pull this off, was she aware of how magical this journey was? What were conversations like about you traveling so much and taking these risks and filming these projects? She was right there with you, but what was your relationship like?
It wasn't always great. It was there have been some challenges, right? Because I think that it's been important for her to find and connect to her own identity. And so that's been a little bit of a challenge. There has been a lot of traveling. There's been, I was very much a helicopter parent. I'd lost a child before I had her. And so that wasn't something that I think I'd completely healed from. And so I was just so afraid, to let her go out into the world, let her, you know what I mean? And so I think when you're a helicopter parent, you kind of handicap your children. And if you're doing amazing, then they're just kind of with you doing amazing things as well. And, they kind of struggle to find their own way. And so I think for me, it's just been about being honest about the ways I was helpful and honest about the ways I may have clipped her wings, and just being loving and supportive, in the midst of it. I think, and just being honest, like, Black women, I think we just have this experience of giving so much and doing so much, giving too much, doing too much, right? And so it's just about like finding that balance where it's like you're showing up for yourself, but you're showing up for the people that you love. I think, she's seen it all. She's seen it all. She's seen, I don't really know if I say what sacrifices I've made. I mean, there were certain things that I didn't do because it just wasn't who I was, so I think my lifestyle supported my dreams. I didn't have to like, let me not drink or let me not this or let me not that. Those weren't vices that I had. So I didn't have like habits that I had to shave away in order to follow my dreams and my goals. You know what I mean? I think the biggest thing was just remaining steadfast, and knowing that that we were going to be okay. Not so much from a financial perspective, but just from like an emotional and spiritual perspective.
I'm so sorry. I had no idea about the loss of your child. That definitely will affect the parenting of the next child, and it fully helps to understand helicopter parenting and clipping wings. And again, as we grow, so do our children. So I'm sure in her journey to 29, she understands a little bit more about your journey.
Yeah, it's not always pretty, and I just think that being honest about that is important. You know what I mean? I'm a single parent. You know what I mean? Her dad is great and has been in her life. But, I think that the more honest Black women are about how difficult this can all be for us, regardless of whether or not we are successful. There are many Black women who are successful in their careers, but their personal spaces don't reflect that. And I think that all of that has a lot to do with the childhood stuff that we got to get clean and clear about. And, being the demographic in this world who's the most overlooked and unseen. So a lot of this work for me has been about healing and transparency and honesty. And I think that if there is something that people really, resonate with from me and from the work that I do, is that it's honest. It may not always be comfortable, but it's going to be honest,
You also nurture actors, which is so great because I'm married to an actor myself and he loves a good director, a nurturing, caring director who can tease out these incredible performances. I would love to know what your process is for eliciting these standout performances from actors. And you're really doing a great job creating environments behind the camera where authenticity thrives, not just within you, but in your actors.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of fun on set. We have a lot of fun. I mean, there's a culture of the show, right? But then there's also like the energy that the different directors bring in. And so, yeah, I've had, great success with having a really nice energy on the set when I'm directing. So I think a lot of it is just that honesty, that transparency, that being able to connect to people. Like they have to trust you as a director, as a person, but as a director. And so I think my actors, they've trusted me, not just obviously knowing the material, understanding the material, knowing exactly, where we're going, what story we're telling, like all of those things go without saying, but sometimes folks don't know, right? Understanding all of that. But you'd be surprised. But also,
I was not going to say nothing. I was just going to let it go.
Yeah, just telling the truth. We're here to tell the truth, right? Whatever that is, because people can tell when you're not telling the truth as an actor. And, it's, for me, I can think about moments like when I talk about like having life experience as as a director. I was working on a show called Love Life for HBO with Jessica Williams, and we were working through a scene, and she's incredibly talented, and she was getting it, And the showrunner said, yeah, yes, it's good. It's good enough. I'm like, I think we can, And the scene was about her breaking up with her boyfriend. That's how it's written on the page, right? So understanding the subtext, understanding what's really being said is important. And I went to her and I said something along the lines of like, on the page, this is you breaking up with your boyfriend, but doesn't it feel like how we have a tendency to self-sabotage? A lot of times as Black women, we feel like we don't deserve, or we're operating from a place of lack of worthiness. And it hit her. And she, and that was the take that ended up in the edit. I think you have to be willing, we talk so much about how actors have to show up in order to get that performance, but how does the director have to show up? I can't expect them to be honest and open and transparent if I'm not open and honest and transparent. So saying, hey, I understand this because I have this life experience, or I understand this, you know what I mean? For something along those lines. And we get to the truth. And when people are telling the truth, the performance goes without saying. It's going to be beautiful because they're telling the truth.
The behind the scenes work of what you do is so important. If people don't see it, people don't know it, but they can feel it. Mm-hmm. And that's the je ne sais quoi that makes your work so wonderful. And you continue to make incredible projects that represent not just New Orleans with like the second line, but also there's so many other things that you have happening. And one of my favorite segments on this podcast is called Mompreneurs Manifestation, where I always ask each of our guests, what are you trying to make happen? How can we help bring it into the universe for you? What's something that you are really hoping to pull through in the next few months or this next year that you've been working on, that you've been hoping for?
I'm working through the development phase of my feature film, The Return, with Malcolm D. Lee and Black Male Productions. And it's been a long journey, and really looking forward to making that film. And, in the position now to sell some shows, working with my reps to get some of these projects sold, and just looking forward to having an incredibly abundant, spiritually, emotionally, clear, and just abundance on every level type of 2026. Yeah.
I love that. Talk to us about The Return. Tell us about its story, its goals. What does it mean to you? This is a project that you've been passionate about for a really long time.
So The Return is a story about a young white woman who inherits her family's plantation home in Louisiana. And the descendants of those who were enslaved on the plantation live in the area. And so it's about a land dispute between our protagonist and those who were enslaved by her ancestors. It's an ancestral story for me. It's in the area where my ancestors were enslaved. It's talking about enslavement in New Orleans and the surrounding areas, which is something that we haven't seen much of. New Orleans had a very particular, specific type of chattel enslavement here. We'll see some of Congo Square, which is where the enslaved Africans had a day off on Sundays and got to go there and practice, their dance and their culture, and many of the things that they did then, we still do now here in New Orleans. It was because they had those days off and kept that culture with that day off and kept that culture intact, that they say New Orleans is one of the most African and Caribbean cities in the United States. And so, yeah, The Return is an ancestral New Orleans story about Black folks fighting for what they absolutely deserve.
It's absolutely beautiful, and we are very much looking forward to it coming to screen so we can see it, so you continue to do what you do best. We appreciate you, and I want everyone who's listening and watching to know where they can find you, Stacey M Films, and all of your wonderful endeavors. Can you let us know where generally you post, where people can look you up?
So my website is staceymmfilms.com, and I'm Stacey Muhammad, Muhammad, Stacey Muhammad. Stacey Muhammad on all the platforms. TikTok, I'm not on TikTok as much, but definitely Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, you can find me there.
Amazing. And before we go, any final words of advice, any final words of wisdom for our audience who are, I'm sure, inspired by you to know 44 is just the beginning.
Yeah,
33, you're 33, you're still a baby. And your life is long with your kid.
yeah.
And you just keep iterating the best you can. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice that you think lands in your heart and in the hearts of others?
Take good care of yourself and do your work.
Thank you for being here. I'm working to take care of myself. I'm trying to do good work. And it's easy when the person I'm interviewing is someone as amazing as you. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. You're wonderful. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for listening to and watching Mompreneurs. As a reminder, a brand new episode goes live every Monday on Urban One Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit urban1podcast.com to learn more. That's urban, the number one, podcast.com.